Thank you, Miss Hannah. I appreciate you. How's everyone doing this morning? Good? All right. Man, God is just good, and I just wasn't excited about leaving his presence, Just wanted to sit there a little bit longer and let him know how much I loved him and how much I appreciated him. I hope that's okay with you. All right. I mean, it fit perfectly with what I'm going to be talking about today. But before I get there, I do have a question for you. I have a question for everyone in this place. It's a simple question. It may seem random, but I promise it is going somewhere. Where would you say, and feel free to answer this by all means, where would you say does most any race start? Where does a race start? When you think of any race, right, you've got marathons, you've got, what was that? Start line? Yes, okay. All right. Every race starts at the start line. I would assume that in this place, when you hear a question like that, that's going to be the first answer that we all would think of. Where does the race start? Well, it starts at the starting line. It doesn't matter what race you're running. When you see something like this is what you think of, right? Or maybe this. We got any Indy fans out there? You want to get a little bit more dirty? Maybe here. It's got the pyros in the background. You know what I'm saying? That's what we all think of when we think of a race starting. Depending on the type of person that you are, maybe you're not a runner. So you don't picture the starting line of a track. That's just so far from your mind, So the thing is that when we think about starting a race, we start from a specific place, and that specific place is to us the starting line. But in all actuality, races don't start at the starting line. We are dead set in our mind when the question is asked that that's where the race starts at. But truth is no race ever starts at the starting line. There's so much preparation that goes into races before the people ever pull up, walk to, bend down at any starting line. See, we thought that when you start a race, it would look like this. And in our hearts of hearts, that was it. There's no better answer until we see this. What's going on here? Stretching. If you're a runner, you had better make sure that you're stretching. And I mean, I could continue going on this particular one with stretching, right? Like before, I could have had 50 other pictures in all reality, but I'm going to stop right here with stretching. Because if you're a runner, then you know that maybe it started the day before when your mom made you pasta. Right? I'm not a runner. But I had some runners in the house, so I've tried to figure out what would be the best way for them to prepare for their event. But again, maybe you're not a runner, so we think that being at the starting line or the start of our race would look like something like this. Next picture. Right? Back there again. But we've already said that that's not where it starts. So if it doesn't start there, then it probably starts here. Right before the race gets started, you know, they're back in their camps, in their tents, and they're tuning and prepping and getting everything ready for the race. But yet still, we know it doesn't actually start there either. But then if you're the motorbike guy and you thought that the race started with the pyrotechs and the music and the, you know, revving of engines, it doesn't start there either. It starts there. Right? And again, we can continue to go back further and further in each one of these situations. You know, whether it's building the bike, right? Building the car, building the body, training the driver. I had no idea, and I'm talking about stuff I don't know anything about. I've just only heard. But I had no idea what went into training to drive in an Indy car race. It's insane. I mean, in some cases, they could be prepping to run a race. I mean, there's a need for endurance. I'm thinking to myself, why? You're just sitting down the whole time. Yikes. I would hate to be the person to say that to one of them in person. You know what I mean? You know, but as I found out, there's so much that they endure. There's so much that they endure that they have to prepare for. The high rate of G's, right? The pressure as they go around the track at 200 miles per hour, consistently turning. The heat from the car. That's why they're so skinny. They're so little. They're just in there sweating. There's a sweat box. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's insane. But somebody loves it. Just like the runners. They're prepping. They're eating the right thing mentally. First time I ran a race, it wasn't a race. It was just running to pass a test. The first time I had to prepare for the test, a guy came in and he was trying to prepare us to run. And what he said to us was, whenever you take off running, he said, as you run out of your driveway, look 3 driveways down the road and say to yourself, I just need to get there. Look at the next block and say to yourself, I just need to get there. Can you believe that it works? Like your boy was out there like, I'm about to die. I just need to get to the next house. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I would get there and I'd be like, okay, let me get to the park. And by the, next thing I know, I'm running like, Forrest Gump up in this mug. Like it. Now, granted, when I got home, I could barely walk, but that's a whole nother story. I want to talk to you about another race that we all know about. It's not quite as glamorized. Some of us probably don't even pay much attention to it, even though we're right smack dab in the middle of it, and it's the race of our lives, right? It's the race, not just of our lives, but the race that we run on the day that we accept Christ into our lives. Paul talks about this race, his race. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, he said, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. There's a lot going on right there, more than we give attention to. Just like when we looked at the guy who's driving in the car, driving in the car and just going around in circles, right? Somebody states it that way, but we know that there's so much more going on. Paul said, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race and I have remained faithful. There's so much there to be said. I mean, just off the top of your head, how hard do you think it is to remain faithful? How hard is it to remain faithful? What does it take to remain faithful? Yeah. Right? See, when you start looking at some of these words, it's the equivalent of looking at the Indy racer realizing he's going around the track at 200 miles per hour. Remaining faithful. Pastor John said it takes endurance to remain faithful. Now, we could jump into that and we could break it down the same way I would break down the track running and the marathon and the dirt bike. And right, we begin to break down what it takes to do these things. But that's not what I want to talk to you about today. What I want to talk to you about today is the preparation to do these things. But before I could really talk to you about the preparation to do these things, I needed to make sure that we all understood that the things that we're looking at, the races that we're running, are a lot more difficult than we will give credit to. I needed to make sure we were in the mind to kind of quickly, because our brains work really fast, we needed to compute the fact that, man, this race is hard. It's a lot harder, and there's a lot more that goes into it than I sometimes may know. And see, I don't know your life. I don't know your race. I don't know your struggle. From the point that you said, yes, Jesus, I want you. I don't know what you went through from that point going forward. I don't know what's going on in your life right now. But I could just assume that there's probably something that you needed some preparation for. Can I tell you there's some things that I needed some preparation for? Desperately needed preparation for. Can I tell you also that while I was being prepared, I didn't want to be there? How many of us do something that we know we need preparation for, but we don't want to prepare for it? My son Malachi, he plays basketball, and he wants to be the man. There is nothing more that he wants than to take that ball from one end of the court to the other end of the court and just lay it up real nice. And the truth is the more guys that was in front of him, the better it would be, right? Like, in his mind, he's like, I don't want just 5 guys on the court. Go ahead and throw the rest of the bench on the court. I want to be able to dribble through all of them, you know what I mean? Like, he wants to, twist and, you know what I'm saying, through the left. He wants to be able, like, that's the dream, right? In his vision, he's like, I want to be able to just do it all and then make the layup. Because if it was just one guy that he got by, you know what I mean, he'd be like, okay, right? Whatever. But that's how we all dream. That's the way we all. But in order to do that, and the truth is that there are some guys out there that can do that. But in order to do that, they have to prepare. And that's what I want to talk to you about. I want us to understand that no race ever starts at the starting line. The race starts far beyond that, and it's in our preparation. So when we're looking at Paul talk about himself and him running his race and him fighting the good fight, I had to ask myself the question, what did he do to prepare? I have another question for you. Anybody in here, when you hear the phrase I'm about to say, like, you'll know. You'll know the answer. But anybody in here have a praying grandmother or maybe a praying mother. You had that, and maybe it was a father, right? But you had that person that was praying for you. And you knew that there was no way that you would ever make it to where you were today had it not been for that person who originally started to pray for you. If our race doesn't start at the starting line, if our race doesn't start at the moment when we say, Lord Jesus, come into my life, where did it start? Can I say that it started with somebody in your life who hit their knees and was like, find them, Jesus. Save them, Jesus. Keep them, Jesus. So the truth is, it didn't start with that mother. Not just the mother, right? Because my mom gave birth to me, but it didn't start there. My true race that I run, the race that you ran, started at the moment when somebody hit their knees and began to pray. So, could I just submit to you that the race really starts in that moment? In that moment of preparation? Can I make the statement and the challenge to say that anything we do that's worth doing starts in that moment? Everything we do starts with prayer. Should start with prayer. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 7 through 10, it says this: you were running the race so well. Who has held you back from following the truth? It certainly isn't God, for he is the one who called you to freedom. This false teaching is like a little yeast that spreads through the whole batch of dough. I am trusting the Lord to keep you from believing false teachings. God will judge that person, whoever he is, who has been confusing you. Back to the beginning. You were running the race so well. So we got into the race. We're running the race. But guess what? Something went wrong. How did it go wrong? As I read this scripture, the question to me was, how did it go wrong? He says, who has held you back from following the truth? It certainly isn't God, for he is the one who called you to freedom. How did it go wrong? False teacher. A false teacher, a little bit of yeast, a little bit of something crept into our life that slowly spread and begins to destroy, break down, hinder the race that we're running. Wait a second, Pastor Dwayne. Somebody prepared, right? I said yes to Jesus. I asked him into my life, and now I'm running a race. How am I messing up? My question to you is I know somebody else started the preparation, but what preparation have you done?